Hi, I'm Clever Ghoul, but you can call me Nikki. Welcome back to the channel. I don't know about you, but whenever I see a good moon, I'm definitely the person who texts all her friends to say, go look at the moon. I just love it so much. This week when I was walking around Five Below and I saw that they had round canvases, inspiration struck and I knew that I wanted to make a moon. But not just any moon. I wanted to make a moon that also would illuminate. So with that being said, let's get into it. For materials, you're going to need a round canvas. I got mine in a 2 for $5 deal at Five Below. A variety of acrylic paints. I used mostly white and black and a deep gray that I already had, and I ended up mixing a lot of my colors. If you don't really feel like mixing or you don't feel confident in your mixing skills, then I would suggest getting the following pre-mixed paints: a white, a light gray, a medium gray, a deep gray, and a black. That way your bases are covered and you can just go. Make sure though that if you are buying pre-mixed paint and you're buying pre-mixed grays, that they're all the same tone. So you're either gonna go all warm gray or you're gonna go all cool toned gray. You wanna keep them all in the same tone, otherwise it's gonna look muddy and weird on the final project. Next, you'll need some paint sponges and brushes, as well as an old toothbrush, masking or painter's tape, some scrap cardboard and a cutting tool, hot glue, and some mini fairy lights. I got mine on Amazon and I'll put the link below. First, I mixed white with a little bit of black to make a very light gray paint, and I painted that all over the entire surface of the canvas. I also used a hairdryer after painting just to speed up the drying time. Next, I pulled out a gray pencil and started drawing out the darkest crater marks that are on the moon, just mapping them out carefully, roughly sketching them in. In case you're not confident with your drawing skills, I do have a tip for you. You can print out a full-size picture of the moon, whichever one you're using as your reference, and then you have either these two options. You can take a pencil and make a complete layer all over the back and then put that down on top of the canvas and trace, and it should leave an imprint. Or you can buy graphite transfer paper, usually at any craft store or art supply store, and use that so that you're able to just trace on the outline of the shapes that you want to paint. Now, what I should have done here is painted in those shapes that I just drew out, but instead, I don't know what possessed me, but I wet a paint sponge, wrung it out thoroughly, sponged on a layer of medium gray paint that I had just mixed, and started going around and adding that medium gray layer on the moon first. However, once I realized that I was kind of making a mistake, I pulled out a brush and using that same medium gray paint, just started filling in the outline that I had just made with the pencil. Then I hit it with a hairdryer and moved on to adding in some deep gray paint. I took a sponge here again and lightly dabbed in that deep gray where I just needed areas of a little bit of shadow, but not too much. And then with that same deep gray paint, I went back in and did that same area that I'd outlined, and I did it in sections. And when each little chunk was done, I would take a very lightly damp sponge and just sponge around the outer areas of the section I just painted, just to blur the edges out and make it look more cohesive. Then I felt it was a little too dark, so I mixed some more light gray and with a sponge very lightly went in and pressed in some of that color around where I thought it felt too dark. Now at this point I decided I wanted to jazz this up a little bit, so I pulled out this metallic deep gray paint that I have in the shade Zinc and just dry brushed it over some of the mid to dark areas just to add a little pop of something different. I also used that same metallic paint and painted all around the outer edge of the canvas. Next, I took a toothbrush that I specifically have for craft purposes, dipped it in some white paint and flicked it all over the moon so that there was a fine, misty layer of white going all over the moon. I added in some more intentional, bigger splashes here and there, and I also took my finger, pressed it into the white paint, and dabbed in some areas where I knew the bigger craters were going to be, just to kind of map them out for the next step. Then I took a small round paintbrush, added in any detail like streaks or lines of where the craters were, and I also added in some bigger dots here and there with the white paint. Then there were some areas around the edges that were feeling a little too light for me, so I went back in with a mid-gray paint and a sponge and just lightly blended out some spots that I felt were just a little too bright or weren't quite right. You're gonna go back and forth a lot with the different tones and colors because that's kind of what the painting process is. So just as you go, pay attention to what you think needs a little more balance, what needs a little more brightness or a little more dark. It's really up to you. There's no wrong choice. While that dried, I moved on to the bumper pieces that will allow the canvas to sit a little bit off of the wall so that the light can shine through nicely. To do this, I pulled out some scrap cardboard and made two 3-inch by 1-inch strips. Then I would take one strip and cut into 1/2 inch or so little rectangles. In total, I made 9 little rectangles, and then with hot glue, I would glue 3 of them together, and in the end, I had 3 individual bumper pieces. To attach these, I made sure that I knew where the top of the canvas was on the back, and then with hot glue, put it on that cardboard bumper and stuck 1 at the top and then 2 kind of at the bottom side, almost like a peace sign or a triangle there, so that there's 3 bumpers on the back of the canvas. Now to add the lights. The first thing I did was turn them on so that I could see how they were gonna lay out. And then with masking tape, I started to tape down the wire as I worked my way around the diameter of the circle. Once everything was in position, I did hot glue the wires in 2 different places, but I didn't want to glue down too much because if I ever need to remove these lights, I don't want it to be such a hassle that I end up ripping the canvas. So I just wanted a little bit just to make it secure, and then I left the masking tape everywhere else. I also used masking tape to tape the battery pack down here because these little light strips have screws on the back to take out the batteries and change them. You don't really want to glue those down and then not be able to change the batteries out, so tape is the way to go. And with that, we're done, which means it's time for the reveal. Here it is. You know, I was thinking about this as I was making it, and I'm not sure that I've ever really painted a moon. Well, not with this much detail before. So for a first try, I think this turned out pretty good. I also love the way the metallic kind of shifts in the light. I think it reads well as a moon, and I'm really pleased with it. In total, this project only took me a couple of hours. It was really easy, but I'm also really comfortable with drawing and painting. So I would say it might take you a little bit longer if you're not as comfortable with drawing and painting. And as I mentioned, there's ways to trace your moon onto your canvas, which would make it even easier for you. So I think it's something really anyone can do. I do have that second canvas left, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna do another project with it or if I'm gonna make a second moon. I think it would be really cool to make a moon in a completely different color. I love when you see a big yellow moon in the sky, especially in the fall. It's just everything to me. I think you could also use the second canvas to make a whole solar system with these if you really wanted to. If you were gonna do this at home, what would you do? I'd love to hear in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.